Hello, hello, everybody. Kelsey Komarowski here, founder of Como. Welcome to today's parent and student story. We are joined by Kim and Ethan, and this is actually the very first joint story we've had. I just told them before I hit record that they're basically our guinea pigs for doing it this in this new format, but I think it'll be fun. So thank you guys so much for taking the time. Ethan is on his break, so especially thank you for coming on, Ethan. And Ethan, I'm gonna pass it over to you to start. If you can kind of set the scene for us, tell us a bit about your background, and also sorry guys, Ethan is currently in college, but we're gonna flip it back to what high school was like. If you can tell us a bit about grade 9, grade 10, set the scene for us, Ethan.
I was actually transitioning from middle school from eighth grade. I was transitioning from a private school to a public school. So I had to get used to that environment and had to make a lot of friends. I made some friends through those 4 years of high school, but I would say that my freshman and sophomore year I had, I believe, honor roll, and actually I think it was all freshman and sophomore, not junior, but also senior year honor roll. So um, high school went by pretty quickly for me. I had some teachers. I have actually one of the teachers. His name is Mr. Carter. He's still at Matoka High School in Chesterfield, Virginia, and he is one of the most influential teachers I've ever met in my life because he's the reason why I'm taking the major that I'm taking right now, which is in cybersecurity at Old Dominion University.
Wow, Ethan, that's an incredible shout out to your teacher. I hope he gets to watch
Yes,
this
yeah,
and hear
yeah. Shout out
this.
to Mr. Carter. Shout out to Mr.
Yeah.
Carter for real.
Awesome, Mr. Carter. Okay, so that's so okay, so high school kind of went by really fast. Ethan, what did you find easy about high school? What did you find challenging? What were your struggles really? Towards the end of high school, leading up to college, how would you describe that period?
Well, I'd definitely say fast forward until freshman sophomore year was pretty easy for me. I mean, there was a point in time where I was stuck and I had to ask teachers for clarification on stuff. But fast forward to my senior year of high school, because that was when COVID hit. Um, I was actually in my junior year of high school when COVID hit and they closed schools down. And then fast forward until senior year, we everyone was virtual. I mean, they had hybrid. You could do half virtual, half in person. I chose virtual, so I was in my house all school year, and I was able to get straight A's that year. So I didn't really have to ask any. I mean, I asked my teachers questions here and there, but um, I never really struggled. I don't remember ever struggling.
So, and Ethan, so would you say that you got those grades with relative ease? Like in the absence of struggle, that was it kind of a situation of if I'm doing the
It was.
homework,
I'd say
I get
relatively
it.
ease. I'd relatively ease.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd definitely say
Okay.
relatively ease.
Okay. Awesome. And Kim, how about from the mom perspective? Would you say more or less aligned with what Ethan has just shared, or was there anything else going on?
Yeah, so I'll just take a step back or two. Of course, we sought out the Como method back in the summer of Ethan's freshman year, I believe. Freshman, or it was between freshman and sophomore year. And it was as a result of, a lot of things. One of them was Ethan's diagnosis, which came very much later in life, but was also part of the test anxiety that he was having. And, with having the diagnosis late and not having any plan, right? And then having the test anxiety, although he was getting decent grades in classroom setting, he was having struggles with testing.
Mm.
Um, and that was when we came to you all and we talked through that. And Rosemary was his counselor. And one of the struggles was that he was in a new environment. And the social structure of that environment was new to him as well because all the students had been together for a long time. They knew one another. So there was a social aspect, but there's also a teaching aspect that the way teachers taught. Um, when the pandemic, when they closed down the school in his junior year for the pandemic, I wasn't worried at all. He had gone through the program 2 summers before, and I knew he had all the tools. There were some parents that I talked to. I'm also a member of a couple of parent support groups for children with attention deficit disorder on different scales, and of course we all talk. And Nova, I guess I can say this one on camera. It's Nova Chad, which is in Northern Virginia. They're a great resource for parents. And one of the things that I wasn't concerned about was Ethan's structure outside of the classroom, because he had such good foundation with the Como product and the structure that you all had given him. So he was able to actually thrive in a at-home environment, which was a surprise because most parents were very upset that their kids couldn't go back into the classroom setting, and kids were struggling because that familiarity had been taken away from them. But Ethan was able to really rise to the challenge for that, which was really comforting to me because I was also working from home. So, the three of us were all at home in different parts of the house, and I was able to give him some freedom to do what he wanted, and he did it without me having to remind him and constantly be on his back about things. And then, of course, the senior year full remote with no choices.
Right. So, Kim, I've got to pause right there. First of all, I think you just made probably the majority of parents watching this very jealous about he just did the things and I didn't have to be this learning coach and like this, trying to be on him. So I love that. But I also think let's contextualize this. And I know there's kind of two main parts here for this story, how this is unfolding. We have the high school piece, and then what happened when Ethan got to college, which we'll get to. But let's start with the diagnosis with ADD or ADHD.
ADHD.
ADHD. When Ethan got diagnosed, like what was school like before that diagnosis, leading up to that for you guys?
Well, on a parental side, Ethan would spiral quite a bit. So if the grades were basically there, but the understanding was not there. So when we were in the 9th grade, he would make the grades, but then he would struggle in the next iteration. For example, if it was a basic algebra class and he had to move up to a secondary algebra class, there were gaps in learning. There was a lot of either gaps in learning at the onset or loss of learning to the next level. And so I was really beside myself with helping him try to retain information because I couldn't help him in those fields. We had tutors also. And even in one class, he had a tutor. He did not make a good grade, even with the tutor. So we wondered, is it, what is it that's happening? And we would continue to tell him, I think that's the summer we enrolled actually in Como. Was that summer, Ethan? And that's where Ethan had learned all of the skills. So it wasn't that, I want to go back a little bit. It wasn't that he still had the learning challenges. He learned differently, but he could learn, just like every child can learn. They just learn in a different way, and there's a different motivation for them to learn. And, just like teachers are different. So he hadn't learned how to adapt that style to his learning style so that he could actually flourish. So I guess what I'm getting to is that the learning knowledge or loss of knowledge was a concern for me as a parent, and the building blocks that were being missed were a big problem for him. In my view, he may have a different view because he was the student, but I was just looking from the outside in.
Yeah, which is huge. And we'll get Ethan's take here in just a second, but Kim, on your end, were you at the time seeing it quite clearly of he's missing foundational blocks to do with learning? It's not necessarily about these kind of specific subjects necessarily, or did you come to kind of discover that, after we had met, or was that evident to you from the start of like, there are some foundational skills gaps?
I didn't really identify it until after you and I we worked together to figure it out. I knew there was something. I just couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, I've never, I mean, with the diagnosis, there were no options given to us. There was medication given, the option of medication, but not any executive skills type of offerings. Like it was just like, well, we can put him on medication, but he was already 16. It's like, what good is that going to do me at this point, right? And to take and try to put him on the medication and then try to get it right, and all the struggles that it just didn't make any sense. And now he'd be younger, and maybe we'd had the medications, and he was maybe a little bit more focused. I still would have used the program because there were some executive skills that he didn't have that I recognized that were outside of that diagnosis. I think the diagnosis just led me to look for a remedy that would help me to help him, because high school wasn't the end. College isn't the end. He has to live on his own. At least I hope he does. But even in the workplace, these things are really important. So it doesn't matter about. I mean, high school was just a bridge to get to another phase. But without having those executive skills young and being able to employ them, I was concerned that he would actually have some of the same recurrences of learning loss and kind of dips that that would not give him the encouragement he needed in college, with all the changes that college brings, and then in life that being on your own.
Totally. Kim, thank you for that. That's such great context and insight. And Ethan, how about for you, from your perspective, same time period, if we're looking at right before your diagnosis, right when you got it, were you kind of in the same boat as your mom, that you felt like, okay, there might be after this diagnosis something to do with skills, or did you feel like, oh, I'm just not good at math, or I'm just struggling with different things in school? What were you experiencing at that point?
I would say that I think there was a point in time where I was completely lost in what I was doing. When it came to some subjects that I'm good at, which are math and history, I'm very good at those. But when it came to, let's say, like biology or chemistry or something actually, I'll say chemistry, for example. I wasn't very good at that, and I never really I never helped myself. Well, actually, I did try to help myself, but I never asked my teacher any questions on a personal level, like on a one-on-one conversation, like after class, for example.
And can I ask, Ethan, why was that? What held you back from asking the teachers questions?
Because I felt stupid for asking questions, because I feel like I felt like I was gonna get judged for asking questions. But now that I look back at that, and now that I'm in college, I definitely would say that I just don't regret, like, how can I say this? I don't want to do that again. Like, I don't want to, in life in general, not even just in the classroom, but in life. You don't be afraid to ask questions, is what I'm saying. Because it's okay to ask questions. Even if you feel like you're gonna feel judged, it's fine. There's people in class, like when I'm in the classroom, there are people that ask questions that seem very logical, but they're just asking questions, and they're not afraid to say it with their chest. And there's been times where I've asked questions, and yeah, they'll judge you or whatever, but who cares? It's only for your knowledge and for your feedback on whatever you're confused about.
It is so empowering, Ethan. I'm gonna clip that and just blare it. I think every single student, every single middle school, high school student, and into college, if they haven't learned that lesson, needs to hear it. Like it's so, even what you just shared, it's so liberating to just be released from that fear of judgment or fear of being seen as a certain way. And like you said, it's just none of that matters. And when you can get on the other side of it, everything becomes easier and better.
And the thing is after you ask all those questions that you need, wherever you go to after that, you'll feel a whole lot better. You'll want to keep doing that more and more and more. And the more you do that, the better you'll relieve a lot of stress off of yourself, because that's what's happening to me in college right now. I've been able to ask my teachers in my first semester. I didn't ask teachers a lot of questions like I am now. And from that transition from last semester until this semester, I'm asking my teachers all types of questions, and it's
Good.
benefiting me. So yeah, it's benefiting
Fantastic.
me.
Oh, Ethan, that's so great. So let's talk about, because this is, and I just want to highlight this real quick, especially for students or parents. Often it's often seen as a personality thing, like I'm shy, so I don't ask questions, or a thing where it's just like, well, it's just not me, or there's a lot of fear where it's just, I'm too afraid. And that's just the way it is. And we hear this from a lot of students. And I know that it's so heartfelt where it's coming from. But at the same time, this is a skill, right? Building out resourcefulness, building out courage, right? Getting comfortable with being really uncomfortable. It's all part of learning. And to frame this as this is a skill you can develop. So like, Ethan, how did you develop this skill? If we go back to this, and actually maybe this is where, I don't know if this is the right timeline of when we met, but Ethan, your mom had mentioned tutors, like trying out some different things to help you when you were in this place of feeling lost. Um, a lot of families that we work with have worked with tutors extensively before they come to us. Can you just speak briefly to that, even just that alone, of what was the tutoring versus when we started working together? What was that? How were those experiences different?
So I will be openly honest about this. When I had the tutors, I would be able to obtain the knowledge that was given during that session, and then I wouldn't work on it after that. I would just I would just be like, okay, I learned stoichiometry and chemistry. Okay, cool. And then the next session, we talk about something else, and I would forget about all the knowledge that was gained from that first session. And then when it came to the next session, it would just pile up over and over and over again. So I would openly say that I really worked on never really worked on what was given to me after the session.
Mm, That's
That's
um,
what I would say. That's what I would say.
that's articulated really well, and thank you for your candor. I hope that you can keep that honesty this whole conversation. This is what it's all about, right? Again, it's just your situation. I think is going to resonate with a lot of students, and I think it's going to give hope for a lot of students too. So your candor is awesome. Okay, so I guess first off, Kim, how did you, or Ethan, but I'm pretty sure it was you, Kim. How did you find us?
Um, I That's a very good question. It's been a minute, so let me recall. I think I was actually when we received the diagnosis, and I talked to the clinician, and they offered the medication. I was like, okay, well, gosh, you know, is that it? Is that what Ethan? Was that what we're going to do now? And I went out and I did what everybody does. I Googled, I Googled things, and I came up with it was the Thriving Teen Network, and I located that, and I actually was talking to a coworker of mine, and I said, "Hey, have you heard anything about this Thriving Teen Network?" And the more and more I probed into it, I think I actually joined the Facebook page or
I was going to say
something.
that's our Facebook group for
Yeah,
everybody who
and
doesn't
I
know.
joined their Facebook page, and then I started reading some of the information through that, and um, I learned of executive skills. I didn't know about it. I
Mm,
didn't know that was an option. I talked to two um, practitioners here in Richmond, in Virginia, where I live, and I felt like they were too clinical. And I was like, if I'm going to go this route, I don't feel that I feel like my kid's going to be going to another doctor. and it just didn't feel right to me. And then, we set up a call and talked. And was what I realized was that the actual program was more geared toward personalization and not through this one-on-one counseling. Like, I'm going to sit you down and we're going to talk about your feelings and we're going to just hash and rehash, your diagnosis over and over and over again. I felt like when we talked, it was more like it was geared toward Ethan, not me. I'm not the one trying to get the help. I mean, I want the help as a parent, but he was the one that needed the help. So that's what led me to reach out and to sign up, or to sign him up and get his buy-in to the sign up, which was massively critical because, like he said with the tutor, he is, mostly right. His tutor worked very hard to, I guess, instruct him, but without taking it and applying it, it was absolutely no good to us. And so week after week, the tutors would come, the tutor would come, the tutor would come. And week after week, he would fail a test. He would just bomb it. And we're like, what is going on? And he'd go, I don't know. And like, the tutor sits here with you every week for an hour, at a very, pricey price. And I want to know that you're getting what you need. And then talking to the tutor was well adapted to Ethan's learning style. So I couldn't figure out what was going on. So then when we finally realized it wasn't the tutor's motivation to tutor, it was the student's motivation to learn that was the challenge for Ethan. And so with this method that we learned through Como with him is taking accountability, learning to, and I wasn't in the sessions. I would hear him, but I wasn't participating, like hovering over him, but I would understand that he was being given empowerment to take these skills and apply them for himself in the way that made sense for him. So learning of any subject would be based on that foundation. So he wasn't just learning chemistry or learning, biology or whatever, English, or he would actually learn how to learn, if that makes sense.
Kim, it makes so much sense. It's I feel like I want to again just kind of clip that and just share it with everyone. Be like, what do we do? Listen to Kim; she'll tell you. She knows. That was so well articulated. And I guess the first follow-up question I have for Ethan, because Kim, to your point, the buy-in is critical. Like we always say, we can't. It's the whole you can lead the horse to water, can't make it drink. If a student is, if any person, it's adults too. If you're not open really to learning something, nobody can force you to do it, right? You're the person who has to do it. Ethan, for you, especially in light of the experience with tutors, when it didn't really work to move the needle, it wasn't changing the results. What made you buy in to this learning how to learn approach versus the being taught subjects through tutoring approach? Were you open to it from the bat, or did it take some convincing? And be honest, I won't take offense.
It took me some time to convince myself to push myself, because I remember I was watching motivational speakers on YouTube, and that kind of gave me a boost to want to do something and continue to push regardless, and never to give up on yourself. So I definitely would say that YouTube, motivational speakers in general, not even just on YouTube, but even reading some articles from them have definitely played a part in my development in striving to be the best I can be.
Ethan, I want to pause here for a second because it's so I think this is so important, and it's probably one of the number one things we hear from students about, I'm just not motivated. I just don't really care enough. What for you, what was that experience in bridging from not feeling it, you took action, you watched these motivational speakers, which by the way is such a fantastic insight and suggestion. I'm wondering if you can speak to what was it about listening to that or seeing that that did motivate you, that did result in you being like, no, I want to do something. I'm going to take action.
Listening to hear them talk. There was listening to hear them talk, and you felt somewhat empowered by the way how they articulated their situations in life. So there was one I cannot remember his name right now. I can picture his face, cannot remember his name, but he has a story, and his story was how he struggled in his story was somewhat similar to mine, so I could relate to what he was referring to. And but listening to him for, I don't know, he had a couple of videos that had to do with high school and college, and because he dropped out in his sophomore year of college, I believe. And now he has his own business. I can't remember the name of the business either, but just listening to him talk really, really helped me, because I could relate. When you can relate to somebody, it helps you feel a lot better about yourself.
Yeah, totally. So Ethan, let's even for you here to share some possible motivation with any of our learners being like, well, I wish I could feel that, but I don't. What flipped for you, Ethan, when you did start to learn how to learn, when we started working together, you started building out, the skill set to apply to all of the different subjects. What was that experience like? What was different about it from tutoring? How did it affect you? What was helpful? What did you actually find moved the needle for you? What changed?
One thing that I definitely would say, one thing that I would definitely say that I remember from the Como program was definitely the Google Calendar. That has helped me massively. In high school, that helped me a lot, and I'm still using it to this day in college. And that definitely was like one of the biggest things that definitely helped me with achieving achieving a good straight A's in high school, as well as getting good grades this semester as well.
What exactly about the calendar was helpful?
About the calendar, I remember there was a part in the program that I remember, and it had something to do with looking at the syllabuses for the teachers and having to put in the due dates, and how to being able to prioritize your time management, because that was a problem that I personally struggled with, time management. There was a point where in high school I would study for 3-4 hours on one subject instead of breaking it down piece by piece. Now transitioning into college, in the first semester I still had that mindset, but now in this semester, I've been able to prioritize all of my work and get it done as soon as I can. And I also have been able to, how can I say this? I would say I've been able to have a lot more fun in college because of that. Because I know that, people say, oh, you have fun in college, but the real reason, as we all know, the real reason why you should go to college is to get a good education and to get a good job straight out of it, or an internship in between the summer of like your sophomore year or something like that. So I definitely would say that. I definitely would say the calendar has definitely helped me. That's how I would say that.
That's a big one. And I want to even kind of separate out here, because I think something that is so cool about your story and about what you're sharing is that you got this, let's just use the calendar tool, right? You got this tool, you got these skills in high school. They helped you through high school. And I love what your mom said about even when COVID hit and there was no structure, you had your own structure that you had kind of worked out, and you were feeling good and autonomous about it, which is amazing. So I just want to highlight that for high school, you've really clearly communicated like that was a shift, and that was really helpful. But let's talk about what happened in college, because I think your transition in your first year of college, the first semester versus second semester, is also really, really important because it speaks to the fact that these tools don't go away. But what happens if we necessarily don't use them, or those things can change what we experience. So can you tell us a little bit about your transition to college?
Well, my transition to college, I would say that the transition at first, it was very different. I didn't realize how much independence you really get once your parents leave your room, the day that they drop you off. So there were times where I would, I'll openly say this. There were times where I would hang out. I'll give an example. So I'd say probably around October, there was a time where I would always hang out with my friends, and there would be times where I would be hanging out with them, and I would be thinking, like, in my mind, I would think like, wait a minute, I've got work to do. Should I do this? Should I do the work or hang out with my friends? And I chose to hang out with my friends because of that, because I just did at the time. And I would definitely say that I did that quite not very often, but I did that enough times to where um, I wouldn't prioritize my schoolwork as much, and I wouldn't even tell my parents. I will openly say this: I didn't even tell my parents when I called my parents, or when they called me. They would ask me how college was going. I would actually lie to them and tell them that everything was going good when it really wasn't. And that took me a while to actually open up to them about that, because I felt like they were going to be um disappointed in me, and I was going to be disappointed in myself for telling them that, because that wasn't how I would that's not how I wanted my first semester to go in college. That's not how I wanted it to go.
Wow. Ethan, that's really powerful. Thank you, first of all, for sharing that. So you flat out just you did not want to share. I'm not making the best choices. Maybe it's not going the best way. I'm not doing as well as I could be. Kim, did you have any idea while this was happening, or did you think that everything was going well?
Well, I think his father and I realized that being in college meant independence, and that it was a new environment after not being in high school, or being at home, even at home for the longest. So we we anticipated that he would have some distractions along the way, being a freshman, away from home on a college campus, with lots of things pulling his attention away from schoolwork. We also realized he had been out of the school environment, for a year. Even though he was successful in his senior year at home, there was a socialization that was missing, and now it was all of a sudden back in a way in college. What we didn't anticipate was the the fact that he wouldn't share with us he was struggling. And he reached out. He has an older sister. He reached out and talked to her, but he really was kind of mysterious about it, not really telling her too much either. But um, he eventually did call us and tell us what was happening and how his grades were suffering. And he was afraid to do that, because he thought we would be angry. And what I learned, also, I'll say this: Ethan wasn't the only one learning during Como. I was learning too. Was that, the struggles don't define who you are. So when he was struggling in high school, it wasn't defining who he was or who he is. College, the same way. Everyone struggles, everyone. And so to put pressure on him and say, you must go to school and make all A's, otherwise I don't love you anymore, or whatever, was an unrealistic and not very helpful mantra. So when he finally did tell me, I told him that from this point forward, let us help you. Let us help you figure out what to do. We can't teach you and we can't make come and take your test for you, but the resources that are available to you along with the skills you already have and some bravery on your part will make the next semester much better. Maybe you make a C in a class with a very difficult professor. Maybe you flunk a class. It's not the end of the world. Even seemingly it feels like it for a student, but it's not. And then as a mom and as parents, I don't want to put my value of my child's affection into a grade letter. So I learned that through Como is that reinforcement needs to come as you're more than just your grades. You're more than just the grades you bring home, so that you understand and can put them into perspective. So when he finally did open up and tell us, we talked about it, and we could make it better at that point. He didn't have the best GPA in his first semester, but the first semester is done. There's nothing to be done except to move forward, and that's what we chose to do together, and we support him. He's talented in the way that he's handling it, very mature in the way he's handling it, which I applaud. Um, but at the same time, it's his journey and he has to find his way. So I'm trying to allow him that breadth of width to do it so he can.
Which I'm sure is serving both of you much better than the alternative.
I sleep a
For
little. I
sure.
sleep a little better. I sleep a little better now.
That's
I do as well.
I bet. I bet you guys. So that's so Ethan, tell us a bit about just in brief, because I know I'm taking up a bit more of your guys' time than I said, but tell us just in brief for you, what was, going from this success in high school and using some of these tools, we didn't get to all of them, but the calendar is just such a great example, to, lots of socializing, enjoying life, struggling with school, seeing those grades go down a bit. What flipped for you, especially after you did reach out to your parents, you're on this journey together, but what did you do because now, from what I understand, you're making all A's again, or you're close to, you're absolutely crushing it and you're feeling good and you're asking questions. What was that change? What did you do? What did you use to change things for yourself?
Well, the thing is, if you start off bad in your first semester and you have that break, that's Christmas break, I took a lot of time. I took time out of my break to make sure that I wasn't going to do that again. Two, I was going to push myself a lot, even if it, even if it was going to be hard. I knew that I could do it. And three, I would definitely say that talking to my sister about it because she didn't she didn't do so well in her junior year of college, and she could relate to what was going on with me. I'm the opposite. She would pass tests, I would fail tests. So she would ace tests and I would fail. I would like fail them or not do as well as I wanted to. So I would definitely say that those three things definitely are the reason um why I'm acting the way I'm acting right now for this semester. The way how I'm finding time for myself to do everything.
That's awesome, Ethan. It sounds like those things really supported your decision to show up for yourself in a better way, in a way that like aligns with who you want to be, which is just, I give you all of the props in the world for that. It's so
Thank you.
awesome. Yeah. And
Thank you.
Kim, same question, just from your perspective, and I'm sure there's some overlap with what Ethan just shared. Was there
Mhm,
anything on your end that you observed that contributed to this shifting out of this not going
mhm,
the way we want to now, yes, it is, this is what we
mhm.
want?
Yeah, I think for Ethan, I think that it was a little bit of a wake up for him in that college requires a different set of skills. Um, for independence. You know, like you said, your parents are gone. After they walk out of that room, you're on your own, and they treat you like an adult in college. So you know, um, you aren't. A, I don't want to say this in a way to make it sound like you're not young, but you're definitely an adult, a young adult, and the people who are teaching you are either young adults or adults. So your mind, in my mind, Ethan's mind had to shift from being a child in high school
Mm.
to being an adult or a young adult in college, and feeling like, hey, it's not an affront to ask questions or to go to this person and talk to this person. I'm a young adult, they're an adult, respectfully, right? I mean, of course they've got more education, but they're still, 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old young adults. And the other thing is, as Ethan didn't mention, but I would like to mention, is that Ethan stepped out of his comfort zone, which is um, he realized that he wanted to get a study group together, and he kind of hummed and hawed over it. He's like, I don't want to do it because I don't want people to think I'm dumb, and I don't want people to, and I'm like, Ethan, you have no idea how many other people might need to have a study group, but they are themselves too embarrassed or don't want to ask. And so I commended him because he stepped out and he put out there, hey, I'm starting a study group. Um, Anybody interested? And I said, if no one answers, then no one answers. And thankfully, was it 3 people answered, Ethan, for your study group?
In the first couple of weeks, there were 2 people, including myself, so that'd be 3. And now it's about 6 people now
Okay.
Wow.
in
So
that group.
so just by asking, hey, I think that not only allowed Ethan to empowered Ethan to step out and put himself out there, but it also helped 5 other people who might have been struggling, who didn't really have, there's more like a 3, what is it, a 3 chord is stronger than a single chord, or some such statement, where you have, the more minds you have in a space, the easier it is. Everyone can share their challenges, and it's not looked at judgmentally. It's like a mini class almost.
Totally. I'm going to be looking up that music. I think it was a music analogy, but it went over my head.
Yes.
But I like the
Yes.
sound of it. It totally makes sense. That's so the initiative, the resourcefulness, in a sense, I don't want to say bravery or vulnerability. Those seem too serious words, but like it takes guts to put yourself out there, Ethan. And you did that, even if you were humming and hawing before. And worst case scenario, maybe nothing happened, but you did it anyway. You didn't just think like, oh, it's dumb, I'm not going to do it. You took that action. And then as a result, you have this 6 people. That's that is a robust study group. That's so awesome. And what a great example of something to help support the type of grades and the type of like building these habits on top of just like teamwork and collaboration. Like you can speak to this in job interviews when they ask you about these things. Like this is life skills that you're showing. That's Kim, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Ethan, you're not bragging about yourself enough here.
I brag enough for him. He's very, he's very low key. Ethan is very low key. He always has been, and people will assume that he's shy. He is to a degree, but I think that he's a thoughtful person. So he thinks before he tries to speak and say anything. So, but I'm happy to brag on him because I think it is, and I'm not saying that Ethan wasn't capable of these things before Como. I just know without Como, he would not have had as much initiative to do these things. Even if I had said to him, Ethan, I think you should do it. I think in the absence of having the confidence to do it through what he's learned through Como, I don't think he would have been willing to do it because he would have been afraid of failure. And, I think, I mean, nothing is guaranteed, in success or failure. You just have to try one or the other. So I think that in the try, it ended up being a very successful outcome for him and the other students too.
That's awesome. Absolutely. That confidence piece is everything. Kim, I want to ask you just final question here for both of you. Kim, both of you have already actually given so many great tips and suggestions and insights. But Kim, is there anything else you would share with a parent who's currently struggling, who's currently watching their kids struggle, who is feeling at a loss? Anything in particular from your experience?
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. There's just this there's just this kind of this desperation and hopelessness sometimes, where you cry at night because you build your hopes into your child and you want for them so many things, and it seems like they don't want them for themselves. Um, and I was that parent, over years and years and years of watching my children grow up. And like Ethan related to, he has an older sister who's extremely bright, um, and could any test you put in front of her, she could take it. I mean, she was just that bright. Um, she just hated school. She just didn't like it, and she struggled. And you know, at she she was smart enough to go to college, and college isn't for everyone. And I'm not meaning to say that, but she didn't get a degree, but she is able to function in an adult world, and she has her own business, and she's very successful at it. Um, so I had to change my mind on the college isn't for everyone, but some education is necessary. She's gone back and gotten a lot of certificates in her field, which is digital marketing, brand marketing. But the the piece of advice I would give to parents is, um, see your child first for the human being, and that's something that parents don't always do, because we've built this whole, I don't know, this we put our hopes and dreams in our kids, I guess. But your kids are first human, and we all struggle with everything. And so understanding their humanness and realizing that they're trying to get along in this world the best that they can, the same way we did, it will take some of the pressure off of you as a parent. I know it did for me. Um, and I don't look at letter grades as an indicator of my kids' intelligence or success or ability to be successful. I don't look at it that way anymore. That is a worldview that I don't subscribe to anymore. I like to see that they get good grades because I know that will equate to, um, better opportunities, um, in life. So, like I said before, if it's a hard C, it's a hard C. You've earned it. If you've earned it, you've earned it. Um, and I always tell Ethan, you start with an A in every class, and it's up to you to keep the A in the air. And that's what I tell him. It's up to you to keep the A in the air, um, you know, um, as best you can and as long as you can. And that's really how we look at it now. Instead of saying, well, if you just drop it and say I don't want to do it, um, that's on you. But keep it in the air as long as you can. And so I don't know if that was advice for parents or for me.
A little bit of both. That's so awesome, Kim. I think that will definitely resonate with a lot of the human first can be really tricky. It lies outside a lot of the more natural dynamics that kind of unfold as you're raising kids. But
Sure.
that's awesome. Thank you, Kim. Ethan, same question for you. If you had any, a piece of advice to give for students who are currently struggling, what would that
One
be?
piece of advice that I would definitely say, that I'm doing this semester right now, is apart from staying in contact with your professors, apart from that, but also using the resources that the school offers you. For example, like using, because I'm at ODU, we have multiple resources. We have a language center, a writing center to help you with like English for like papers, essays, et cetera, et cetera. We have the Math Science Resource Center, which helps people with classes in those fields and classes in those two subjects. So definitely try to use that as well. Try to use resources like that to help you, because I've been able to have a connection with the person who's instructing me in the math for my math class. Her and I have a very good connection ever since the beginning of this semester. So definitely try to build a bond with those people as well, because they will definitely help you. And don't be afraid. Again, like I said, to ask questions as well. Don't be afraid to ask
Ethan, I
questions, because
just
that's why
like,
they're there.
yes. Oh my gosh. It's so, I wish every student could realize what you've just shared, that learning and achievement and success, it can be so anchored in relationships and in connections that you build with other people. Like it doesn't have to be this solo affair of just
Right.
you in a box.
Right.
It's so empowering. I hope
And the
everybody,
thing
if you're listening,
is,
yes.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I'm just excited about what you shared. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Also, when you tell them that you're succeeding, that'll make them feel better as well.
Yeah.
That'll make the instructor feel better, the instructor or professor, whoever it may be. It'll make them feel better about themselves, and it'll make them want to help you even more to help you achieve. Because other people like seeing other people succeed. Because it'll just make them feel better. That's all I gotta say.
100%. That's excellent. And that's our time for today. Kim and Ethan, thank you so much again for coming on, for taking the time to share your incredible stories.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. Ethan, have a wonderful rest of your break. Kim, you also enjoy the rest of your week. Everybody else, we will see you on our next story. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.